Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Glenn Carlson. You are either listening to or watching the Dent Podcast. Today, my guest is Sebastian Bates, professional fighter, ex-wingsuit jumper that almost died, took 2 years to learn how to walk again, come successful entrepreneur, founder of the Warrior Academy, which specializes in training resilience and character development in children, not just throughout the UK, but throughout Dubai and throughout the United Arab Emirates as well. It's got a team of over 40 odd people, at least 20 to 25 of those full-time. Author, speaker, podcaster, commentator, has the entire KPI stack dialed in. We spend the first part of this conversation talking about his experiences as a professional fighter and a wingsuit base jumper, getting himself into all sorts of mischief, doing all sorts of injuries to his legs and the recovery process for that, and how he wouldn't trade at all, how it's absolutely made him who he was. We also get into bullying and all of the different types of issues that I guess kids are confronted with that his business has a huge impact with as well. We also get into, of course, some specifics around his business, what works, what doesn't, how he was able to navigate COVID, how he started 2 new businesses within that. It's just a really cool conversation. So enough of me, over to, well, me and Seb Bates. What's this I hear about you almost dying in a wingsuit accident?
Yeah, so I spent, when I was 21, I started learning how to skydive. Watched my dad kind of jump out of planes a lot when I was younger. Got me into it. And I progressed very quickly through that in extreme sports, did about 500 wingsuit base jumps and skydives around the world, to the point where I was doing terrain flying, which is where instead of going far away from the cliff, you go very close to it. And I had a really close call in that the parachute, it opened up, but it twisted and it basically collapsed. And I dropped about 50 foot, broke everything from my waist down, was told I could never walk again. And it took me 2 years to learn. Yeah. When I was 24, I was told I could never walk again. Yeah.
Pretty. Do you remember it?
Do I remember it? Yeah, I remember everything. I remember being like really happy that I didn't FEMA, and I thought I was going to bleed out. So I was, I had 15 friends die in like 12 to 18 months in this small group that I was in. It's really intense, high level extreme sport. So
I've seen stuff on YouTube where they're doing that terrain stuff, and like they're kind of like missing rocks and precipices, or they're like shooting through this little narrow kind of gap, and as he shoots through, like the dust on the sides of the freaking cliff kind of fluff up. That's how close they are. But
yeah, man, I mean we used to hike up six hours in Italy and Switzerland and take the ski lifts up in the summer, and then hike down to the exit points and do the via ferrata without any equipment, and then just suit up, jump off, fly alongside cliffs, go through waterfalls. Like, you're doing the most unbelievable things you'll ever experience in your life, right? But the universe kind of has a way of balancing these things out, right? With all that beauty and incredible scenery and experiences, you've got the complete opposite, right? But yeah.
What called you to that?
I'm the sort of person that things escalate very quickly with. So, I feel like I get used to things very quickly, and something is quite scary and new, and then before long, I feel like I'm okay with it. On to the next thing, So it's the same with professional fighting, right? I mean, you train your drills, you get used to something, you repeat the same action again and again and again, so that when you're in a highly emotive state, you can handle it. Same with skydiving. Started with skydiving, just jumping out of planes with 2 parachutes, obviously a reserve as well. Then it got to kind of wingsuiting out of planes again with 2 parachutes, and then it got to the point where it was like, right, what's the next step here? Always looking for the next thing, and it was base jumping. So I basically flew to Idaho in North America near Canada. We were jumping off bridges, antennas, cliffs, which is one parachute. And then I was like, as amazing as that is, I'd love to fly a wingsuit off a cliff. So I remember going to Brento in Italy, and it's like this. Brento's great for wingsuit base jumping because it's almost like a skydive because you're 3,000 foot on the edge of a cliff. And it's got this big open basin, basically, and you just jump off, and you finish your jump with a nice espresso at the cafe at the bottom. And I mean, but sooner or later you start to go to the next level, which is instead of going away from the cliff, you start going alongside the cliff after you jump. And some of the stuff we were doing was just crazy,
Because, I mean, along the side of the cliff, you've got all sorts of wind currents and eddies and stuff like that. Do you not?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So you've got a lot of turbulence, especially when you're near a lake, which makes it great for windsurfing and stuff. They've got a lot of that there in northern Italy, but you have to do it at certain times of the day. And it can cause a lot of issues, right? I mean, normally it's early morning or now and again late afternoon that you could do it with the least turbulence. But there've been some sketchy jumps I've done where you just kind of lost control for a second and you just kind of breathe through it and wait till you can kind of feel the friction with the air again, and then you can carry on.
Breathe through it. Damn. And what caused your crash? What happened?
So it was my 7th jump of the day. I was in Lauterbrunnen in Switzerland. Really beautiful area, amazing. Taking the ski lifts up, hiking down to the exit point, going along the Wehrfrate, and it's about 1,000 foot this jump. And 7th jump.
That's low, right? 1,000 feet is like there's no room for error. You're basically jumping off.
Yeah, very low. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've done a lot lower. But that's off bridges and stuff. We're talking 300 foot. So the higher, the happier you tend to be because you're more forgiving, right?
So is this in a wingsuit or is this just a straight base jump?
No, this is in a wingsuit. Right. So yeah, jumped off exactly the same as normal. Went down. There's a great video of this, by the way. Went down, followed the tree line along the cliffs. I got to the exit, the point at which I knew I had to fall away into open space away from the cliff. Flared the wingsuit so I could slow down my descent. Opened the parachute came out fine, but I realized I was going towards telephone lines. So I had to make quite a quick turning. There was a car park on one side, quite busy. I didn't want to go there. There was a really fast flowing river that side, and then there was telephone lines in front of me. When you're in a wingsuit, you're in a straitjacket. So I had to undo the zips first so I could grab the risers, right? The left zipper was jammed, so I could only use one arm. So I had to reach over and pull the parachute. Instead of using the toggles, I had to pull the parachute, the risers from one side, which turned the parachute. But because it was quite a sharp turn, the whole canopy collapsed. And I just dropped about 5 stories. Both feet, both ankles, both lower legs. The tendons blew off my left foot. It was a really savage accident. But luckily I made a bit of noise when I landed, and a lot of French climbers found me. And an hour later, they couldn't get the helicopter ambulance there because they were busy. So an hour later, this kind of like taxi ambulance picked me up, shut me in the back, and it was 2 hours till I could have any morphine. Interesting phone call to my dad at the time in the ambulance on the way home, because he was preparing for my sister's wedding in 3 days' time. 4 days' time. So he had all the family over, staying over. We're half Danish, so we had half the Danish family over. And I was like, look, I've been in a bit of an accident. I think I said to him, everything's fine. My neck's fine, my head's fine, my back's fine, because I did a scan at this point. But legs are not good at all. So we arranged for him to basically leave without telling anyone in the family, because they were all worried. To fly into Interlaken Hospital and to try and drive me back. And it was injecting blood thinners and morphine on an 18-hour journey home, the whole way to the hospital in the UK, where they then performed surgery straight away as soon as I got there. And yeah, I just kind of remember 3 surgeons in Switzerland looking around the X-rays, just like shaking their head. And there's a bit of humor here, because every single person in this ward is lying down with their feet up, because they've all had similar accidents, whether it's climbing or whatever it is, right? Because of the environment there in Interlaken. But they were just like, how do we break it to him? And they said to me, you're never going to walk again. And I just remember thinking, that's ridiculous. When can I jump again? Like, walk? Like, I'm not even concerned about that. I'm more concerned about jumping. This is just doctors being doctors, right? We got to the UK. The UK guy said exactly the same thing. The guy came in, he was really somber, and he sort of stood over there with a clipboard, as they classically do, straight out of a movie. And he looked at me and he was like, look, I've got to be quite realistic with you. You'll probably be able to walk again, but it's going to be with a really severe limp. You'll never be able to run again. Walking is going to be limited. Like, you're not going to be able to do much. Your fighting is gone. Your jumping is gone. Martial arts is gone. You need to start thinking about what you can do with your body, and it's all going to be very different from now on.
And so you can obviously walk, you can obviously fight. What was the journey from there?
The journey for me from there was, so I was able to go home. The funny thing was, I escaped the hospital in England, and my friend picked me up, and we put a suit on, cut the legs off, and I attended my sister's wedding because I promised I would.
Not a wingsuit. I'm hoping.
No, not a wingsuit.
Walking in.
Probably more dramatic though, into two casts. But just she was like half happy to see me, half like, you're just stealing my limelight here, aren't you? So that was that. But I went back to hospital straight away because the pain got too much. But yeah, so it was about 2 to 3 months of just lying down. At the same time as this all going on, I had a business with 300 students at the time who needed me to teach them. And I had one assistant instructor who was basically holding the fort, but he was leaving to go to uni. So, I had a lot of time to think and to plan about what I could do and how I could do it. Ultimately, I realized, long story short, I realized that I needed to build a team, and I got obsessed with delegation. And it created a void kind of in my mind for me to be able to have an amazing lifestyle, but have the security that it's not going to end. I need to build a team around me. So I kind of just got obsessed with that. But initially, eventually I could walk myself with crutches to the toilet. I was doing a lot of exercises, like, I was training my upper body. I was doing pull-ups. As soon as the pain from having the legs down didn't hurt, because there was an element of potential kind of compartment syndrome or whatever. So that whenever there was any blood or pressure going to the legs, I was on the floor again. But I was always finding something to train. And then ultimately, it was just one of the hardest things was the nerve damage, because there was so much nerve damage. The foot didn't feel like mine. It felt like a stranger's foot. Some parts were hypersensitive and other parts just felt like dead tissue. So that had to take a long time to kind of regrow. And around a year into this process, where I was literally going to class on crutches. The parents were opening the door for me, and I was hobbling in their martial arts training. I was hobbling in on crutches, and they were like, when are you going to come out of those? And I was like, just a couple of months. Thinking, ever? I don't know. And so, going from teaching 30 classes a week, fighting professionally in Thailand in the summer, and then, taking 2 to 3 months off here and there to go and do 10 base jumps a day in all over Europe and America, to basically being bedridden with the idea that I'm never going to be able to do anything active again. I think one of the lowest points for me, the lowest points weren't really like lying in bed thinking, what have I done to myself? The lowest point for me was when I was referred to the pain clinic. And it's this place you get referred when you, like, last chance saloon, right? It's like the hospital, like, well, there's nothing we can do with you anymore. So the pain clinic is where they send you to learn how to live with chronic pain. And it's as grim as it sounds, really. And I remember just like always kind of ignoring whatever they would say whenever it was pessimistic, just being completely like, no, this is how it's going to be. I'm going to be able to do those things again. I did base jump again. I did fight again. And I I slowly put my body back up.
Did you base jump again much?
No. I didn't base jump much. It took me about a year and a half to be able to withstand any impact on feet at all. It took me a while to be able to do that, so I couldn't. But I found Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as rehabilitation, right? So all of my martial arts before then was pretty much stand-up fighting, high impact, knees, elbows, kicks, hitting pads. That stuff all went out the window after this. Like, there was no way I could kick a pad. So I found Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and it was just low. It was low impact. It was amazing community there with just healthy lifestyle and really supportive. And I built myself. I was training 2 hours every day for 2 years in Jiu-Jitsu. And within 2 years after the accident, I was competing in national competitions across the UK in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. In multiple different weight categories, and Jiu-Jitsu really brought me out of a dark place, and that having an amazing girlfriend who soon became my wife after that. And ironically, what's really funny is the same day that I landed in hospital in the RUH in Bath to have this surgery, I think it was exactly something like 4 years later, my daughter was born on the same day, like in the same hospital. And it's just like, if these things don't happen, I was thinking the other day about, if I could go back, someone asked me, would you change anything? And I was thinking really hard about it. If you could go back and talk to yourself and change the outcome of what you've been through. And I said to them, look, if I could stand on the edge of the cliff, looking at me all suited up, about to jump off, and I knew exactly what was going to happen to me, I wouldn't say a word. I wouldn't want to interfere with the journey I was about to go on, because, ultimately, if I had said something, who's to say that the journey would have been better or worse, right? I know the rate I was going, that accident was a blessing. It probably kept me alive. I was going hard. There was no one pushing it like me. I was going hard on this, and it was probably the best thing for me to have that accident, because it was an accident where you are going to recover and live a normal life, right? I still wake up with arthritis every day. It takes me 10 minutes to get downstairs in the morning, but whatever, right? I live in a hot country, so it's not as bad as it could be. But I think ultimately, you can kind of look back and I can really join up the dots and see the path I was going on. That accident gave me time to reflect, time to plan. And as I did with the jumps, just kind of breathe through it,
Breathe through it. You're a savage, man. We are built so differently. I decided I was going to get into skydiving, and on my second solo jump number 2, they holding on to me, and they let me go, and they waved me off, and I waved them off, and I'm doing the thing. I'm like, this is cool. Get to the right altitude, pop the chute, bang, chute's twisted, can't untwist it. I'm pulling this thing here, pulling the risers apart, trying to get it to unfurl. It's not happening.
This is your AFF, right? This is on your advanced freefall course. Amazing.
Yeah. Right, literally my second jump. They were still holding on to me at the start, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, this sucks, and I keep doing it, my brain, and I remember distinctly, like, another voice coming into my head going, how long are you going to chase this dragon, Glenn? And I'm like, fuck, this is happening. God damn it. And so, rip, punch, drop.
Nice.
Reserve pops out, and nice solid little snap. Like,
yeah, perfect. Lovely white canopy above your head.
Yes. And floated back down. And I was done. I'm like, nope. I think I got everything I needed to get out of skydiving. I'm good.
Well, I think if you have a malfunction on your second jump, I think that's enough to put most people off, to be fair.
Well, I'm like, I wasn't damaged, but I wasn't psychologically damaged by. I'm like, I can do it again. I get on the horse and, and I'm like, dude, this is bravado. What are you doing? Like,
yeah,
you got the you got the lesson. Like what else are you going to try and get?
Yeah,
like,
totally.
Okay, cool. Move on.
Yeah.
But,
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, man.
There can be a lot of ego involved, and ego gets you killed in that sort of game. Do you know what I mean? And I was lucky to have two amazing mentors. One was a guy called Alex Polly. He was an ex-professional snowboarder, totally out there, like amazing guy. He passed away sadly while I was jumping, but amazing guy. Another was a guy called James Ball. He was a British guy with a family. He took base jumping in a very. They both took it in very different ways. So I had this kind of balanced mentoring approach, which is quite interesting. But yeah, it was. I think when I had kids, I was like, I can't do it again. It's as amazing as it is. It's selfish, right? I mean, skydiving is one thing. I'd do that again. I'd love to throw my wife out of a plane. I think it'd be good fun. but I'm not sure she'd agree. But I think base jumping, it's a whole other animal, you know. So but yeah, you haven't done skydiving properly till you had to pull your reserve. So nice work.
Yeah, well, that's what I figured.
You got a much better story than if it went well, right?
That I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. And I kind of had the same feeling that it was kind of like, yeah, I'm probably glad this happened.
Yeah.
I don't know. It seemed to tick a box in my head. But I've now decided I like the illusion of danger, but not actual real danger. Can you give everyone a rundown, like bunch of business owners, bunch of entrepreneurs listening to this? What I'd love to do is do a run through of your current business. Give us like a fly through. How does it work? How many on the team? Like, how are you structured? Where is it? Like, just try and give us a short summary of kind of who you are, what you do, how it works. And then we'll pick apart, if you're cool with that, a bit of the origin story and how you've kind of become the key person of influence in your space.
Yeah, of course. So I run multiple different businesses now, multiple streams of income, if you like. But for me, the foundation business, my regional business, is the Warrior Academy, which is a martial arts organization that specializes in character development. So our unique selling point is really how we dive into character development, and ultimately developing a child's confidence, conduct, and concentration, what we call the 3 C's. So I started in the UK with the Warrior Academy, and built it up pre-COVID to around 500 to 1,000 students a year in about 40 locations in the Southwest. We moved it to Dubai, and that's where we are now. And now in Dubai, we're teaching between sort of 600 and 1,000 students a year in a full-time academy. So we started in Dubai in multiple locations. Now we've got a full-time character development center, which is the only specialist character development center in the Middle East. And it's run by a team of 6 full-time. And now we're looking to expand that into Abu Dhabi, London, but also across the Gulf. So into Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi, Jeddah, Riyadh.
Mate, super cool. So, and, author, podcaster, and you've kind of really built out, I guess, the assets of influence around that. So let's go back. Where would be the best place to kind of start the origin story of how I guess your entrepreneurial journey started?
Oh, yeah. I mean, so when I was 18, I left the UK to go and study in Denmark. I wanted to be an architect. Prior to that, I was in the Royal Marines Reserve for about a year and a half, 2 years. So all my mates were older than me. They were in their 30s. I was 17, 18. And I had a very active lifestyle, which was great. Moved to Denmark. I worked as a chef for about 6 to 8 months in a lakeside restaurant to earn a bit of money before I started studying. And then I got into architecture, and I loved it. But about 8 months into it, I remember having a conversation with my professor at the time, and she was like, "Look, what's going on? You seem a bit off, seem a bit down." And I was like, "Look, I'll be honest. Everyone else here is getting paid to study. They get paid by the government, 600 quid a month to study. I don't get anything. I'm washing dishes from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. then in class at 6, 7 a.m. in the morning so I can study again. I don't have any money. When I come in, my feet are wet from the night before because it's the same shoes I'm wearing. This is my kind of situation every day. University for me was not like it is for the guys in the UK or even Denmark, which is just great socializing, that sort of stuff. And she painted a picture for me. And I asked her, what will life look like if I study really hard, absolutely smash it, 7 years come out, 20 years down the line, 30 years down the line, what does that look like? She painted a picture for me, which ultimately, it kind of sums up entrepreneurship for me, because whatever she said, it didn't really matter. She put a cap on what I could do, right? It was like, here's the picture. There it is. That's what you can do. And it just didn't inspire me enough, you know, and for some people that would be the dream. Now I look back, I'm like, well, I could have had my own practice, whatever it is, right? But I wanted freedom more than anything else. And so I went home and bought a one-way flight to India that day. And I remember having a couple of drinks and on Skype with my friend from England. He did the same thing. And a few weeks, I'm trying to break that news to my parents, who were telling all their friends that their son's going to be an architect. I've been a disappointment since. But yeah, so I rocked up in India, and that for me was when I really started to develop resourcefulness and creativity, which I think is some of the key traits for entrepreneurs, which really showed in this recent crisis, right? Which really showed during COVID. Those who were able to be creative and resourceful just thrived, did so well. And I realized that was where my strength was. You know, we had no money in India. We spent 300 quid a month. We were sleeping on trains, just traveling, just like learning about India, just traveling, you know, backpacking, basically, whatever backpackers do. You know, and we were trying to make money wherever we could, just to you know, live. And one good example there would be I was working as a monkey chaser in a Mumbai hotel. Monkey chaser. I know.
What? What's a monkey chaser?
Well, you know, I get asked that a lot, and it's a fairly flawed role.
Sounds like a cocktail. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, well, it definitely wasn't a cocktail. So I was in a hotel. Picture this: you're in a hotel in India, right? Well, not really a hotel, more like a hostel. There's loads of there's like a restaurant downstairs, but no one's eating there because it's got branches and everything. You look up and there's loads of monkeys in the trees on the balconies. And we approached the owner and said, look, you know, we don't have any money. We'd love to. We're not sure how to pay for the tea that we've just ordered. We'd love to help you with your monkey problem, right? Saw a problem, try to provide a solution creatively. The problem is that he's got too many monkeys. No one's going to eat at his restaurant. We can solve that problem by chasing the monkeys, monkey chaser. The problem with being a monkey chaser, which is great because you get half board and free accommodation, whatever, is that if you're good at monkey chasing, your job goes out the window, right? So it's a temporary position. I've not picked up the monkey chasing role since, but yeah. So anyway, so I started, and then I left my friend and I went through Southeast Asia, and I started to pick up work all over Southeast Asia, just random work. And I realized, you know, I could go to the docks, and I could, or the train stations, and I could meet other tourists getting off buses or trains or whatever, and I could bring groups of 10 to 15 tourists to a hotel, fill out the whole hotel with that straight away, because they wanted familiarity and they could see someone Western. So they came to me and I'd say, right, just give me your passports, follow me. There you go. Boom. 15 rooms in one go. Now I want a free 3 week or whatever. And we did that. I did that in Vietnam in a few different hotels. In Thailand, I rented about 4 or 5 different bungalows and sublet them out during the full moon parties. I was regularly fighting in exhibition fights in bars and some of the islands, where they would just give you free drinks and maybe some money, that sort of stuff. So it was just a case of finding creative ways to continue the adventure, but it wasn't sustainable. Much like monkey chasing, it's not sustainable long term. It's not a career path, right? But I found myself for about 8 months on a Thai boxing camps in the north and in the south of Thailand. This is after like an amazing adventure of motorbiking across the length of Vietnam and all this sort of stuff, right? The ultimate adventure, the ultimate freedom. And I fell in love with Muay Thai. You know, I just absolutely fell in love with it. It was the people, it was the culture around it. It was just such a beautiful style.
Is that the Tiger Muay Thai camp in?
So Tiger Muay Thai. I trained at Tiger Muay Thai before, when there was only 2 rings there. And I couldn't afford to pay for the accommodation and for the training. So what I did is, when everyone left, I snuck into the ring, and I used to try and go to bed in the ring at night after everyone had gone. And it brings me to another story. This is just going to be a podcast of my rambling stories over the years, isn't it? But but the problem with that, the problem with sleeping in a ring at night is that there's a lot of mozzies. So the caretaker started noticing that I'd sneak into the camp and like try to go to sleep in the ring. So he would leave out smoke in the ring without telling me to get rid of the mozzies. He knew I was there. But just like the amazing Thai culture there of just giving, right? Just leave the smoke out, not tell anyone that I was there, but just to get rid of the mozzies. Anyway, that soon came to an end because there was a tree next to the ring. And I mean, you're from Australia, right? So this is probably normal for you, but for me, this isn't normal. I woke up and next to me was this massive python, and it was just like dangling in the tree next to me. And that was it. After that, I was like, right, I need to find a way to pay for a room because, again, this isn't sustainable. So, but yeah. So
I went and trained there for 6 weeks.
Oh, cool.
In Tiger, and it broke me. I was just shattered. It was seven days a week for like 12 hours a day. 12, 13 hours a day, and I was broken. After 6 weeks, I'm like, I'm going scuba diving, and I went scuba diving for 3 weeks. I just need to be weightless. But I mean, I wasn't a fighter beforehand. I was just going there as a bit of a tourist, and thought, okay, I'll do an immersion.
It's amazing that road has really evolved. There's so many amazing gyms down that road now. I've been back about 5-6 times now. I even took my family down there to train. So my wife and our daughter, we went there. We took Molly, my daughter, backpacking around Thailand, 2019 pre-COVID, which was great. We got on there just before. So a lot of training in the north, a lot of training in the south, and fell in love with it, and just decided, look, this is what I want to do. I want to do something active. I love the idea of running my own business. I think it'd be great. So maybe combining that with being active. So I borrowed $3,000 from my dad and booked a personal training course in the UK. I think they're just quite relieved that I was going to come back at some point. So they were like, that's great. It's not architecture that we thought he was going to do, but he's doing something he seems more passionate about, which is cool. So
our son's now a monkey chasing bar fighter.
Exactly. I once had some fun with that, right? Because I remember putting a CV together just for a laugh when I got home. And I sent the CV off with my A-level results, and then they were like, can you just share some more, work experience and stuff? And I listed every weird position I had across Asia. And I sent this up, and I got into like 3 universities. I was never going to go there, but I just got in for fun, studying law and all this sort of stuff, which is really like technical stuff. It's just quite funny to see their reaction. I can imagine that someone actually reading that and just thinking, we've got to get him here just to hear these stories.
It would be good crack. Bring him in.
So came back to the UK, did a personal training course, and then my first gig was teaching Thai boxing. I was paid £16 an hour to teach Thai boxing in a local inner city, fairly rundown gym, where I was taking over from someone else, and it was basically a testosterone-fueled fight club. When I rocked up, it was really quite hardcore, but it was amazing. Some great guys there. What I realized was as I started training these guys out more and more and more, I realized that a lot of these young kind of adolescents came from very disadvantaged backgrounds. They were sleeping rough. They were on drugs or alcohol. They were kicked out of their houses regularly. They had unhealthy relationships all around them. They would rock up with black eyes and, all sorts. And I realized that what I could do for them was far more than just teaching them techniques to defend themselves. It was really giving them a moral compass and giving them an alternative way to live their life. And I really enjoyed seeing those changes. And there was this group of about 10 of them. And I remember taking them all to the English kickboxing championships. And they won silver and golds and all sorts. And these guys became national champions within sort of a year. But it was really humble beginnings. I remember I had this old Peugeot 106 and the starter motor was broken, but I couldn't afford to fix it. So the guys used to jump start the car after every class, which is quite funny. But yeah, I realized that
it's all part of the training, boys. Push.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't do that anymore. But Maybe I should. Good character development stuff, isn't it? But yeah, I realized if I could meet these young adolescent men and women, but mostly men in that club, at a younger age, I could change the course of their life, so they would have this snowballing effect of positive decisions, which ultimately would set them up for a more happy and successful life as adults, right? So what I realized I should do is go to primary schools. So I started going to primary schools, and the first one I went to was the village I lived in, and there was 100 students in the school. I basically trained them all for a few weeks and then said, look, do you want to do a club? And about 20, 30 of them signed up. And we had our first Warrior Academy club. So the previous club was called Warrior Thai Boxing. And then we started the Warrior Academy with one club there. And that was 2011, January, February 2011. And within a year, we had about 200 students.
What is it that you actually do to build character inside what is ostensibly a martial arts dojo, right? Like I'm curious. Like I used to train when I was a kid. I got bullied at school. Dad said, "You should probably learn how to fight." Went to Zendo Kai, learned how to fight, stopped getting bullied at school, right? But I'm not sure if the character development, well, for me, the character development was I learned how to fight, learn how to stand up for myself, solve the problem. But, this is your business. This is not, you don't say, oh, we run martial arts dojos. You're like, we specialize in character development. Like that's your leading thing. So like how, what do you do? How does that occur?
So character development, it's something parents are aware of. They want to develop their child's character, but it's a big gray area. They're not really sure how to approach it. They've got an idea of what they need to do, but they're not quite sure how to approach it. There's very little out there which gives a structured route on how to develop character for young people or for parents to follow. So what we've done is we've simplified it, because ultimately we're dealing with busy parents and we need to simplify things so that they actually do it and they implement, right? So we've narrowed down character development to the 3 C's: confidence, conduct, and concentration. So confidence, having high levels of confidence, self-esteem, the way they look at themselves, the way they approach challenges. Conduct's all about behavior, a moral compass. And concentration, a lot of concentration is mindfulness, meditation, and developing focus, all this different stuff. So we essentially take them on a journey, which we call the Blackboard journey, which helps guide them through some of the biggest transitions of their life. And there's 3 major transitions. You've touched on one of them there, which was bullying. The other 2 are adolescence and changing schools. And it's normally during these 3 major transitions that that a young person's character is most tested. And it's during these points that a child can go down 1 or 2 routes. And what we want to do is be there to mentor them, to help them through those transitions. So it's typically an 8-year journey that they go on with us to ensure they're going down a positive route. And so we use our 4-step methodology for that: community, inspire, challenge, lead. Essentially, we enroll them in a black belt community, and we do lots of different community things to do that. Then we get them inspiring role models. So the whole point is to inspire them. And we do that through things like a daily habit routine, things like setting goals and teaching them how to have ownership of those goals, and then teaching parents to implement them, teaching parents to actually reward their children for the goals and the way they inspire through language.
So this goes way beyond like teaching katas and martial arts forms and all that sort of, you're going well and truly into, life skills.
100%. Yeah. I mean, the ultimate goal of the Blackboard journey is to set a child up for adulthood, right? And a lot of that means encouraging them to leave their comfort zone, right? And to grow. And so community, inspire, challenge, making them understand that leaving their comfort zone and feeling uncomfortable is very normal and should be. And they should understand that's a process of learning anything. So we encourage them from the very beginning. And then finally, lead is what we finish with, right? So lead, from the very, very first class, we encourage students to lead other students. So we build that in. It's got this amazing ability to develop things like emotional intelligence, social skills, public speaking, all these different things. And in order for them to pass their next belt, they have to show us they can lead the whole class. So they have to take the class through various things. And when they become a black belt with us, they go through, as part of the program, they go through an assistant instructor's course. So any child that goes through the entire 8-year journey with us is guaranteed a job wherever we are in the world. So we've got about 25 teenagers now who've got a black belt. They're doing or have done the assistant instructor's course, and now we're giving them work.
Given my position, I tend to see that there's two lines that people will take in business. They'll build a business and they'll continue to just sort of be behind the scenes as best they can building the business. And then there's people that go, no, I've got a message here, and they all become the author, the speaker, the commentator, the podcaster, whatever. They kind of do the key person of influence stuff, whether through us or otherwise, right? Where did that start evolving for you?
Where did the kind of the work on the profile start evolving?
Yeah, well, where did that kind of idea go off in your head that this is something that you need to do?
November 2017.
Could you be more specific?
The 11th.
What time?
It was definitely a KPI event. So I did a KPI event. I watched Daniel speak in Birmingham, I think it was. In fact, I think it was September, that first event. And I brought the business up to a point where we had 500 students. It was going well. I had stepped back from the majority of teaching, but I had lots of issues with staff. Now I look back, I'm like, asset efficiency. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But at the point, it was like, well, we've got these various issues, which is tricky because I've got freedom, but I'm not earning enough to make that freedom exciting. And I remember Dan, like, on his presentation, brought up the Entrepreneurial Journey, and it was like, whoa, that's exactly where I am. It was like as we say now, it's like you're talking about me. you know your clients well when they say that, right? And that was exactly me. So I was like, God, it's like this presentation was for me, and I just did it. I just signed up and I just did exactly what he said for 2 years. I deliberately didn't go to any other mentor, didn't read any other books. I just focused entirely on implementing KPI stuff. And it was about 2 years later that it all really kicked off for me. So obviously doing KPI, you do stuff like writing the book, you work on your profile, your pitch, you work on partnerships. Partnerships took a long time for me to get, really, but the rest of it, I just remember, I mean, it was a funny time to start a course like that because my wife was, she'd just given birth pretty much. So we had little Molly who was, I was up at 4 a.m. every day in bed, a few hours every night, exactly how it is, mate. And I remember throwing myself into this course and just using any downtime I had to write the book, to do the online stuff, to do the e-learning platform, all this sort of stuff, and just implement everything that was coming in. And it's one of those things that takes a while to kick in, right? And this is whenever I'm mentoring Dent or KPI guys now, I'm always like, there's really like a 24-month point where it all just goes bang, everything comes together at once, and it's just this turning point, and you start to see it. And for those who implement hard from the beginning, it's that bang, all comes together. And it's quite cool. And for me, I saw it evolve. Everything was going great. I was ticking all the boxes, did everything that I should have done. I remember standing up on pitch day, and one of the things we had to do was give an inspiring pitch about our business, and at the end say what your vision is. And I couldn't really think outside the box. How could I expand the Warrior Academy? What does that look like? And I said, look, the goal of the Warrior Academy is to expand globally, right? To take the Warrior Academy global. That's what we're going to do. 24 months later, I'd moved to the Middle East with my wife and kids. I was working for the royal family in the UAE and Jordan, flying back and forth. And we were opening up one of the most successful martial arts centers in Dubai. Just crazy. We just did everything we were told to do. Just shut up and did everything we meant to do. Implemented quickly, and there we go. It worked for us, You're
kind of an intense dude, Seb.
I get that a lot, Glenn.
You're kind of an intense dude. What was some of the? I'd love to unpack for some people listening what, in your experience, might have been some of the key things, like the experience. You know, you hold up the book, kind of like that's just one of the things, and all that sort of stuff. What are some of the kind of real experiences that you've had as a result of some of the assets that you mentioned you've developed?
So I'd say the biggest thing, and the thing that really sets us apart from our competition, is our ability to articulate our customers' pain points and challenges to a degree in which they're shocked, right? We know exactly what's wrong and what needs fixing and how to do it. And and a lot of that comes from the exercises in Dent, the 100 problems, the 3 dominant problems, the 3 dominant solutions, building a methodology, developing all the IP around how you make these changes. And then using that pitch to articulate your message in a way that inspires, but also is very relatable. And that obviously infiltrates things like brochures, videos, everything you do. So that for me was the real game changer. The book has been super useful for. It's been like it's a very good culture asset for our team. So everyone on our team reads it, and they understand the Warrior Academy, the method, and me a bit better.
How many total on the team now across all your businesses?
I'd say between 35 and 40, including freelancers, part-time, full-time.
Yeah.
I probably work with about 20 full-time most of the time. But in the Warrior Academy, there's probably about 11 full-time. So yeah, I mean, that's got to be it, really. It's a culmination. There's so many little milestones, right? But it's a culmination of everything at once that kind of ties in together, which makes that big change for us.
Yeah, it is. It's a question. You mentioned assets, and you mentioned asset deficiency. So again, for anyone listening in, we have some jargon around an asset. And an asset is anything that you can make that makes achieving an outcome better, faster, cheaper, right? And so one of the maxims is all stress, frustration, and bottlenecks can be traced back to an asset deficiency. So earlier, Seb, when you were saying, team issues, that issues, like any issue you've got, it's like, what's the missing asset? What's the thing that we would need to build here? What have you found to be some of the key assets that have given you the ability to not just have the freedom, but have the adventure that goes along with it? What have been some of the breakthrough assets?
I think I mentioned earlier in our chat that I became very obsessed with delegation and outsourcing and building a team, and I think the way we've done that, and to a point where I can step back entirely, I don't need to be working in any of the offices. They run themselves. They've got great managers in place who follow systems. But for us, I think one of the best assets we created was I made a rule that whenever you give a task, you've got to video it, so you never have to explain it again. And I remember once we had about 10 on the team or something, and I told everyone to write down every single thing they do in their role, right? Every single thing they do. And anyone listening can do this right now. It would take your team 2 weeks and it will transform your business. It would take you less time than that. So everyone's got like 20 tasks, fundamental tasks to running their role, the admin, the sales rep, whatever, the technical delivery guy, whatever it is, right? Then you make a little video on how to use Loom. And you literally, like, this is the button you press. This is how you use Loom. Your video should be 3 minutes long. You should talk this slowly when you deliver your video and over explain everything. And then I said, right, now you guys know how to use Loom and you know every single task you need to do. You've now got 10 days to video everything, right? And so we had something like 700 videos made in the space of 2 weeks. The entire Warrior Academy was on Loom. It was like, bang, there you go, everything's done. And so whenever we've had new people on board, I remember once I was getting married. When I was getting married, I was getting married in Italy.
At one time.
I was getting married in Italy, obviously not wanting to focus on work, just wanted to focus on getting married in Italy. And during this time, I wasn't aware, but we had a sales rep leave. And the team followed the systems, followed the assets, followed the Loom videos, interviewed, hired, and then trained up a new sales rep. By the time I had got back, we didn't have a honeymoon, we came straight back to Dubai. By the time I had got back from Italy, I had an email from the new sales rep saying, "Hi, I am the new sales rep here. I've been fully trained up, read the book, and love being here, ready to go. I've already made these sales." It was like, oh man, perfect. We built the machine and the machine is good.
What else have been some of the big, because I mean, that's awesome. And people listening to that will get some great value. What are some other things that you find that you do in terms of the way that you've built the business and run the business that, when other people come across it, they're like, oh, that's cool. We can do that well.
For us, our main partnership's been with Dubai's leading production house. So we went out of our way to focus on video content and high level video content. So we've every single thing we want to talk about in the business that we want customers to see it's videoed, and it's done in a very professional way. And I think, for instance, when we expanded from the UK to Dubai, I didn't do the classic go there, try and give out leaflets or flyers or whatever all of our competition would do, go to all these fetes and fairs and all that sort of stuff. Instead, I spent 6 months just dropping pins on Facebook of videos where I wasn't doing a call to action, I wasn't doing a pitch, I was just talking about the 3 main challenges that parents face, some of the solutions, until we just had, people just knew us. By the time we landed in Dubai, in the first month, we had over 100 students just sign up. I remember once we went to, and this is like old school meets new school, right? We went to this school fete, and you put your stall out, and all your competition does, and it's quite funny. It's quite an old school approach, right? And as we got there, everyone looked at us and said, "Those are the guys from Facebook." Ignored everyone else, just came to us, and we were like, "Yeah, that's us." And it was by us, I mean myself and my wife. But yeah, so it was our approach, I think, with marketing, with a heavy use of video content to articulate those kind of challenges and issues that parents face on a deep level.
Mate, that's brilliant. I mean, that's a pure oversubscribed model, right? That's how we've launched in Australia. Like, I came here, it was before you could do any of that with Facebook, and so we did it with books. I went up and set up 50 partnerships and got those partners promoting the books to their database, giving books away, paving the streets with the damn books, Key Person of Influence book. And then I put an event together. And when we put this event together, 500 people show up. There was a lot more to it than that, but it was the same. And then we did, $500,000 of revenue off the back of that. But it was the same thing for the first 4 to 5 months, just seeding, building. And then when we launched Toronto, same deal, just ran ads over the top of it, video content, giving away books, 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 event, pack it out, bang, in business and away. It's pretty cool what you can do with technology these days. It's wild.
And the funny thing is, when I expanded from Wiltshire in rural England, we wanted to go somewhere urban. It was going to be London, but we thought Dubai's a bigger adventure, so we'll just do that. When we did it, it was such a big jump. We were like, wow, this is such a big jump to have to go. But now we realize we could just expand anywhere in the world, as long as it's an English speaking country. Otherwise it's a bit more complicated, right? But we could literally expand anywhere in the world from this room, which is pretty cool, because the majority of the work is the prep, and it's just planting the seeds early on. So that's exactly what we're planning on doing across the Middle East. Our goal really is to expand centres, character centres across the Gulf, but also have partnerships with orphanages in third world countries. So I'm speaking to quite a few in India, quite a few in Asia, which is quite cool because it's almost like going full circle. And the goal is to have 25,000 Warrior Academy students as members, paying members, and 25,000 on scholarships. The idea there is that if we can train a lot of these orphans up and provide jobs to the local community right around that center, then they go through our entire program. At the back of it, they become Warrior Academy instructors. So 10, 15 years down the line, this thing is just growing on its own, developing on its own. And you're basically bringing character development in the places where it needs it the most. So that's our kind of vision with it. And I think in the UK, 10% of our students are on scholarships. We don't advertise it, but it's normally from, parents going through difficult times, separation, if they're from disadvantaged backgrounds, going through a really difficult financial time or something. 10%. We've also not sponsored. We've partnered with a lot of children's hospices. So we work with the siblings of terminally ill children to look after them, mentor them. So a lot of what we're trying to do is to balance out the expansion in the Middle East and what we're doing here with giving children the insight into how they can make a global impact, which is pretty exciting stuff. That's the sort of thing that lights me up.
Do you want to talk to the collaboration you're doing with Menno as well?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So Menno and I have just finished writing Not a Victim. So when I look back at why I started the Warrior Academy, why I feel it's important, a lot of the time it stems back to the bullying I went through. While changing schools, I was bullied quite badly. And it's only when you look back, you
don't strike me as the kind of guy that's going to get bullied quite badly. It's like, tell me about your background, Seb. Oh, well, Royal Marines, base jumping, professional Thai kickboxer.
Yeah, I mean, well, if I didn't get bullied, I probably wouldn't have done any of those things.
Yeah, fair enough.
But when I was asked on Virgin Radio in front of 1 million listeners in the UAE, when I was on a bullying panel, to if I could say one thing to the bullies who bullied me when I was 7, 8, 9 years old, what would I say? And I said, thank you. And I think the radio presenter was like, well, I'm not sure everyone's going to understand that. But some people will, and it's an interesting concept, really, because a lot of what our approach is with the book is that bullying is a very difficult transition, but it's got this ability to make or break a child's character. It's basically exactly what you said, right? You summed it up quite well. I don't strike as a sort of person who's been bullied. That's because I've been bullied, and yeah, when you go through something traumatic, I think it creates a void. And that void you subconsciously try to fill in your life, and I think you do things to strengthen your character if you're mentored in the right way through it. So a lot of what we find is that children just aren't getting the mentoring they need when they go through these transitions. Typically because parents, the first thing that happens is a breakdown in communications. They're not aware their child's going through bullying. So we're basically with the Not a Victim book, and I collab with Menno on. It's been great doing that together. We had workshops booked across Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Amsterdam, London in 2020. Then COVID hit, and we just pivoted the whole thing online. So built this amazing online course, scorecard, book, children's book, and webinars and stuff. All to just it's not
KPI stack.
Yeah, the KPI stack, right? Tick, 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 tick. Cool. Everything we need. And yeah, so I'm really excited about that. I think that's going to do a lot of good. We are going to be throwing that book at anyone who wants to read about bullying. And it's really an emergency survival guide. So you open this book up, right? And what we basically encourage your parents to do is you can read the book from front to back if you want to get a deep understanding of bullying, why it occurs, the philosophy behind our approach, all that sort of stuff. Or if your child's going through bullying right now and you need some emergency help, you can flick to the middle, and there's a 6-step process which has been, I've used with dozens of children to mentor them through bullying. Typically, they get through bullying after step 2.
What are the steps?
So basically, it's the steps. They basically follow across the 6 Ps, which look at things like body language, as how you're presented, how you prepare for bullying, how you practice a lot of role-playing games, things like that. There's a mixture of practical application, as well as philosophy. So putting bullying in the right context. And one of the things that, and I realized I was going in way too hard. I was doing like black belt content at some of these workshops when I should have done like white belt content, because I had parents coming to the workshops, and I was explaining, one of the first things we need to do is to teach parents to forgive their child's bully. Otherwise, how can they mentor their children through it? And what I ask them to do is to forgive selfishly, and they're not forgiving for their child's bully. They're not doing it for them; they're doing it for their child. And ultimately, if they're able to let that go and understand where bullying comes from, why this bully is bullying your child, if you want to call them a bully, that is, and really, when you reframe why it occurs and who that person is, and you start to realize actually the bully is the victim in most of the cases, right? They're normally coming from a place of pain to create that, and so when you teach a child to forgive their bully, or teach a child to understand why it occurs, when they go into school the next day, they're not looking at the bully with fear and intimidation. They're looking at them with empathy and sympathy, and that's half the battle. Like, the fear just shrinks. It's just like psychological warfare, and you go in and you take away one of the key elements straight away. So that's step one. But it's one of the hardest pills to swallow, because parents want to be like, tell me exactly what the child needs to say, right? So I've had parents in workshops crying and all sorts. Their children are self-harming, and it's really, really quite severe. We're going in and we're dealing with trauma at the end of the day. I think when I work with the parents in these workshops and in our clubs and stuff, I kind of see the pain and hopelessness in their eyes that I saw in my parents' eyes, when I was going through bullying. And it's powerful stuff, and it's amazing to nurture them through that out to the other side.
In your experience, how often is the bullying resolved through the psychological warfare, as you mentioned, just like these young kids bringing psyops into school, versus the need for a physical response based on what they're learning on the mat?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I say psychological warfare, but I really mean we're giving them an unfair.
What you're really talking about is love.
We're giving them an unfair advantage with things like mindfulness and meditation, right?
Love and empathy, yes, but it's way cooler to call it psyops. Yeah,
we're the Warrior Academy after all. So
yeah, fuck it. You're not the Hare Krishnas. Jesus, come on, game on.
So this is it. When you train up a child to defend themselves, they appear more confident. They walk into the room and they don't appear to be a victim. Their body language changes. The way they hold themselves changes. The way they speak, the way they use the room, right? The way they have eye contact, everything changes. And a lot of that comes from repetition, right? Stand up straight, the leadership stuff we do, the way they're talking, the way they present themselves, no hands in your pockets, own your space, this sort of stuff. The likelihood of the bullying shrinks massively, right? And then you add into that the deep understanding of why bullying occurs, and you start to arm them with non-physical tools to kind of disarm their opponent way before it ever escalates, right? And then when it comes to the physical side, it's very rare that children need to defend themselves physically. But what we do say is, you should never let another person touch you in a way that you don't want them to touch you. So if that means stopping or restraining someone, that's what you need to do. But it's hitting or any sort of violent action we discourage, because if you encourage it, and a lot of places do, if you encourage it, that becomes the go-to thing. Right. And I remember growing up with my parents, my dad he'd be like, well, if, you ever get hit, you make sure you hit them twice as hard, that sort of thing. And this is the normal thing, like as a kid growing up. A lot of dads now even come to us and they say, look, he used his martial arts. And we're like, well, what we would like to see is him not to use his martial arts, and, to have the power of language to kind of resolve issues, this sort of stuff. So there's a lot of things that we use to encourage them to solve issues without the physical side. But the physical side's empowering. You empower, as you know yourself, you empower a young person to defend themselves and physically, and they know they're stronger than their opponent, even if they don't appear it. they know they can control the situation, they're less likely to be in a physical confrontation.
Yeah, it was actually testament to my martial arts instructor back in the day, where he's like, because I came in for the first session with a black eye, right? So he kind of went, okay. He's like, I'll teach you. And Zendo Kai is reasonably, like, it doesn't muck around. Like, it's designed to get street fighting, designed to get in and to win quickly. And so he said, I'm happy to teach you, but you must swear on your honor, which we will help you to develop, that you will not use anything we teach you here for at least 9 months. And I said, okay. And I didn't. And unfortunately, the posture or the words didn't stop it, and it ended up resorting to a physical confrontation. And from that point on, nothing ever showed up like that in my life again. So I think for whatever reason, that was needed. But I guess it must. The fact that he said that, there must be a real theme within the martial arts community of that whole, philosophy of what is it? Sun Tzu, Art of War. The best best way to win a war is without having to fire a shot.
Yeah, definitely. Some of the best fighters I've ever met are just the kindest, most humble, relaxed people, because they're just not stressed. They haven't got, like, the king of the jungle isn't worried too much.
No. And people know how to handle themselves. It's like, man.
Yeah, exactly. But I had a similar situation. The bullying, the hardcore bullying I received, it stopped when I had when the level of discomfort, when the level of courage matched the level of discomfort, and I responded physically. And I was physically bullied every day. Kicked and punched and whatever, and until I eventually retaliated, and it was just such a shock to everyone around me. The pecking order totally changed, and it was. I remember being in shock myself, like, what have I done? But also being like, wow, I don't need to live like this. I don't need to live like a victim. I can choose not to be a victim, right?
Yeah, I had the same issue. I took it, and then something just happened, and it all happened by itself, it seemed to. And then, like you said, the pecking order just changed, and I'd kind of shocked myself.
Yeah.
It's like
that level of courage, that level of courage you developed over time would have matched that level of discomfort, right?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I'm curious, because that must apply to business, because you do business coaching now, and you do some stuff with our clients through Dent, etc. And that I find fear is, like, I come across people that have just got such incredible potential as business owners, as entrepreneurs, as influencers, and they're just wrapped up in this fear of an invisible boogeyman, like the imposter monster type thing. Do you see you must see a lot of this stuff transfer to business mindset?
100%. I mean, this is what I love about Dent, right? Be brave. This is like one of the things that I really align myself with there. I think a lot of business owners have an unhealthy relationship with risk, right? Because they're not, and a lot of that is they're not willing to take it, or they aren't willing to take much of it. And a lot of that's because they've got an illusion of what could go wrong, and they've got a real vivid imagination of the worst case scenario, which is a fantasy in itself. And so it traps them, and it stops them from really being able to push their business or give it the growth it needs, right? Because they're not willing to go that extra mile. So I think a lot of things that I found through Dent help encourage that. Environment dictates performance, right? When you're around a group of people who are all taking risk, all displaying courage, it changes the way you look at risk and the way in which you approach challenges, right? Whenever I've been, around fairly elite groups like the Royal Marines, professional fighting, Thai boxers, or, elite wingsuit base jumpers, every small group has had this camaraderie where there's a huge element of courage involved, and they're taking risks on a day-to-day basis. But ultimately, you find that strength in community. And I think when as a business owner, it's totally vital, just like anything. If you don't have people around you who are pushing you on to take those risks, you're not going to do it.
Mate, just beautiful. I just love what you do. I've got so much respect. When I was talking to Dan before our previous conversation that went a bit sideways, we won't say why because they might shut down this one. But he was also just celebrating your tenacity and just execution. It's like, there's a thing, execute. There's a thing, execute. There's a thing, bring that to the world, and away we go. And mate, you've just built a freaking epic business. You've created some new stuff off the back of COVID, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So when COVID happened, I was doing a course with Dr. DeMartini in South Africa, and I got a message from my wife saying they've shut down all of our clubs in Dubai. Like literally, we thought COVID was a thing in China. It wasn't going to come to Dubai. And this is the end of February, beginning of March. And literally health authorities came on every club, bang, shut it down, kicked everyone out. And so that was our entire business gone. Back then we were charging termly. So basically on payday, which was going to keep us going for the next 4 months, we got completely shut down. That was a third of our revenue gone in one day. And we had to pivot very, very quickly online. And that's exactly what we did with the Warrior Academy. We within 10 days of nonstop filming, 14 hours a day, we created 700 classes. I think 720 or something classes of what we call Warrior Net, which is basically one of the most extensive online martial arts resources on the planet. It's every single class from white belt to black belt. So that takes a long time to go through. So we managed to move almost all of our members onto that and relaunch the whole business as a digital business in Dubai, but also in the UK. So the UK guys were, when I was explaining to the UK, we now need to prep the UK for this shutdown. A lot of them were like, it's not going to happen. That's just a Middle East or Asia thing now. And I was like, we're going to prep you guys anyway. Yeah, that's coming. So I think let's just prep you anyway, right? So we had the whole UK team ready to roll. And as soon as COVID hit, just bang, everyone online. And it worked very well.
How do you do that? How do you teach martial arts and, the 3 C's and, online when there's someone sitting at home at their desk looking at their computer? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, it's difficult. But, and you can never really take away the face-to-face mentoring that you get, right, between a student and an instructor. But we cap our classes very small. So in Dubai, for instance, they're capped at 12 students. Typically, we've got 5 to 10 students per class. Online, it's even less. We do a lot of check-ins with parents. So we use an internal scorecard which measures the 3 C's. And then we make sure that we phone them up every 8 weeks to see what the progress is. We build a daily habit routine for them to do at home, which is unique to the person. And so we really dig in and find out what are the kind of areas we can make the quickest wins with their child are. And then we focus on those. There's a huge community element as well. And then there's the accountability. So a lot of online courses, I don't think work because people basically say, here's a do-it-yourself service, off you go, right? Yep. It's got to be a case of, it's only going to, otherwise you might just go online and do any other course, right? There's got to be familiarity. So you've got to know, like, and trust the person who's teaching you. There's got to be accountability. So you're staying on track. There's got to be some sort of sense of community, because if you haven't got a sense of community or belonging, you won't, I don't think you'll stick around for as long. And then there's got to be structure in place, right? And interaction. So we're really hot on making that as interactive as possible. We in the classes, for instance, each person would take an element of the class. And, we're then using the whole at-home environment for them to develop their leadership skills in a completely unique way, which is quite cool. But yeah, nothing can beat the face-to-face, but for us, it was an amazing time because we moved everything online, managed to keep everyone's jobs and keep the majority of our members. After a sudden shock with revenue, we managed to springboard back up to where we were. And then a year after that, we had done triple the revenue that we were in that previous year. So it just accelerated, and now we use that as an asset. Like, we've built this amazing online resource, which it's not just it is a standalone product. It can be, but we tend to use it as part of the value stack of what we offer for our membership.
Because you're back in person now, right?
Yeah, back in person now. Yeah, and very, very busy. Yeah, it's I think a lot of people are kind of relieved. I think it was September time that we could start teaching physically again over here, and in the UK it took a lot longer. In the UK it took almost a year of online classes. And I think one of the things we did, perhaps differently to a lot of people, is we phoned up every single member. Every few weeks, we just phoned up every single member just for a chat. And we had, parents whose the breadwinners of the family had lost their jobs. They weren't sure how they were going to pay bills, just on the phone crying. And I think, or I hope that people will remember that we were kind of there just to be a shoulder, throughout that difficult time. We kind of stood up and embraced that challenge with them. We really realized that, especially having, I've got two kids. One of them, we gave birth to, my wife gave birth, I gave birth to Max in the middle of lockdown. And so we had to go through all of this, raising kids in a lockdown, all this sort of stuff. And I just really kind of empathized with other parents going through the same thing, and realized how we could help them. And it was consistency and structure and community. And I think that's what helped bring our community through and became even stronger, not in spite of it, but because of it.
Right. I love it. When you're talking to people that are on the journey to build their assets of influence and to build their brand and profile and reputation, what do you find is the most common feedback or challenges or stuff that you need to reflect back and help them with?
I think most people don't know their customers well enough. They think they do, but they haven't done the digging. You've got to really do some digging to find out like the deep root issues. And what's that? You'll know better than me. What's the Dent saying regarding big problems?
PhD in your customers' problems.
Yeah, and there's another one. Big price tag of big problems or something.
The bigger the problem, the bigger the need. The bigger the need, the more they'll pay. Yeah,
there you go. You said it better than me, mate. So, been doing this for years, haven't you?
Yeah.
So,
I wrote it.
I think it's understanding what their clients are going through and being able to articulate that. It's as simple as that, right? Once you really understand the problem, if you're creative and resourceful anyway, as an entrepreneur should be, you're able to really just dig in and solve a lot of the issues which aren't being met. And so I had that same approach with the other businesses that I launched during the lockdown. One of them was ubiquitous, which means to be everywhere at once. We realized that myself and another KPI basically said, let's just join forces here. He had an amazing online community of business owners called Tears of Freedom, which basically helps a lot of people structure their finances, a lot of other stuff, self-development, brilliant course. And within that, I said, look, a lot of these business owners, they're spending 50 hours a month. We did various polls to find this out, 50 hours a month on social media. And, editing videos, right? Making subtitles, doing all this sort of stuff. It's, choosing the right picture for your quote. It's not KPI tasks, right? So whenever I see questions on our Dent group, I feel a bit bad sometimes. Someone's like, what's the best app to use for making subtitles? I'm always right. I'm like, it's not a KPI task.
No.
Next question.
There's a toxic addiction to tools and hacks and it's like get a virtual assistant. I can't afford I can't afford a virtual assistant. Well, can you afford not to have a virtual assistant? Yes.
Sell something. Anyway, so we created this business, which essentially it's very, very simple. But instead of spending 50 hours a month, they spend 1 hour or even 30 minutes where they make 4 talking point videos where they're 3 minutes each on their phone, straight to camera, send to the team, and the team repurpose it into 16 by 9 square vertical stories, polls, blogs, quote pics, everything. And it gets 200 plus posts or whatever a month go out across 6 platforms. And suddenly we launched this, and overnight it was a 6-figure business on day one. And we had like 50 members sign up, and it was incredible. So I started to develop various different businesses during lockdown, just because I had more time, really. because everything was online with the Warrior Academy. I wanted to create various different businesses to kind of keep all of my team in work, because a lot of them were freelancers in the Philippines. So I was like, well, here's a new business you can now work in, or to provide more security for us. What if this goes on for a long time? What if the sales drop or whatever? So having various routes to generate revenue was important for us. And then we started another business. I partnered with this production house, F10X. We called it F10X Academy, and we launched a podcast. I did like 60 days of podcasts in a row. We had some amazing guests on there, and we launched a business alongside that, which was called F10X Evolve. And because we had launched WarriorNet so well as an online course, we started bringing businesses in Dubai, which are very physical. We're talking lifeguards, wine tasting, all these different businesses which are very physical. We gave them an online asset. We basically filmed them for half a day, built them an online course, and then taught them how to release it in the oversubscribed method. And said, there you go. Now you can survive after COVID. And it was really cool. It was really amazing, inspiring work, because they were completely stuck. And you could see they didn't know what to do, but by the end of it, they were actually really excited about the potential of what they could now do.
Mate, I love it. Do you have a practice for stillness, for meditation, for mindfulness? What's your personal approach?
Yeah, so I've tried various things through the years. For a daily habit of mindfulness and meditation, I think is important. I mean, encourage kids to do it. For me personally, I found when I'm in a flow state, that's meditation for me. And you're not thinking about your emails when you're flying through the air. Do you know what I mean? When you're falling thousands of feet per second, you're not worried about this or worried about that. I've tried to find less extreme things to bring me into a flow state, right? It was funny. My friend Alex Polly, the guy, one of the mentors I mentioned who passed away, he always say to me, you can sit down and stare at a tree for 1,000 years, or you can just jump off a cliff.
Yes.
And I mean, take it with a pinch of salt, right? One's, again, more sustainable than the other. But for me, it's training in the gym, martial arts. When I was doing more jitsu, it was jitsu. Anything where I was 100% focused on what I was doing in that exact moment, that for me is meditation. It's meditation through movement. A lot of people find it in different ways, but I'm more at peace when I'm doing that, especially if it's something which physically exhausts me as well, because I got a lot of energy. So it's finding, for me, it's about finding what works for you. There's no one size fits all. But I've read a recent story from you, which was brilliant, really interesting about what you found.
So I have found that I never got good enough at any particular sport or physical thing to get to that full-on flow state, because you need a combination of, I actually interviewed Jamie Wheel, who's the co-author of Stealing Fire, on the podcast as well. And one of the things, I can't remember if we talked about it or not, but one of the issues is you need to get a proper flow state, you need a high degree of skill and consequence, right? Then there needs to be like a downside. And so the likelihood then, given the way my life was, of being able to get in flow with work, it's like, well, if I'm doing work right, there shouldn't be consequence. Like I shouldn't be in a survival scenario all the time to get into flow at work, etc. The thing that I found with meditation, just using a mantra, is dropping into the gap twice a day. So I do it morning and night. I've been doing it for 50 days now, so I'm fairly new to it. But to go beneath thought into that sort of space that thoughts come from, it feels like the source of me, right? Because if you think about, well, what's my experience of life? Well, it's mostly like you're thinking, and that thinking's leading to action. It's like, well, where are those thoughts coming from? It's like, I don't know. What I've found is, well, you can discover the source of those thoughts, and that place feels more like me than I've ever felt doing anything out in the world. It's impossible to feel fear, doubt, insecurity, stress, anxiety, any of those things in that kind of gap between thought. Again, just my experience. And then when I come out of it, I've experienced more flow in my life, flow, serendipity, like noticing little patterns that come together, and all of a sudden there's a new connection, there's an introduction, there's a conversation that leads to this next thing. It's just happening all the time. I've never experienced anything as consistently spooky. Just consistent flow states, not all the time, but throughout the day without the consequence. And I haven't been able to go like really find anyone that's talking, deeply about how kind of meditation has that effect without the consequence, without that need for a high degree of skill. Like, I've only been doing it 50 days. I'm not in any way experienced. And it just seems to permeate. It's kind of like chrome dipping, like you're dropping into consciousness like a chrome dip, and then you come out and be in the world. I found it just wild, man. I found it absolutely wild. Yeah. So I'd be curious to...
I mean, if you're able to tap into that, I think the key there is without consequence, right? So, I mean, to have flow without consequences, it's pretty amazing. I think the majority of times when I've really experienced flow state, there's been heavy consequence,
Well,
so
yeah, and Jamie Wheal and Stephen Kotler with their book Searching for Superman, and then Stealing Fire, they're talking about SEAL teams, and they're talking about wingsuits and all that. Like, that whole thing is the consequence is the critical point, right? Because it triggers your brain to just go, whoa, we got one thing to focus on here, full power, narrow bandwidth, high throughput, or narrow focus, high throughput. And it just creates a real alignment of mind, body, or spirit, because if it doesn't happen, well, you're in trouble. But the trick is, I guess, how to do that without decades of training in a particular craft. And yeah, for me at least, just dropping in for 20 minutes twice a day into that spot has been the closest I've ever got to what I could imagine. Actually, no, I can't even imagine. Well, no, I can imagine wingsuit. I've fallen out of the sky with a parachute furling around on top of me. That's pretty scary. It brings your attention in, that's for sure. So I could only imagine, though, what it must be like to kind of have your arms back, just map of the land falling out of the sky with a degree of grace and control. That must be pretty epic.
Yeah, it certainly is. I mean, after that, I realized I shouldn't really be base jumping anymore with kids and stuff. I started learning how to fly planes. I did like 20 flights. I wanted to just, become a pilot alongside everything else.
And are you still doing that now? Because that's like the next thing on my to-do list. I've got the book.
Oh, really?
There.
Cool.
Yeah.
No, when I moved to Dubai, I stopped. It was what I was doing in the UK while I was studying KPI. Really.
How come you stopped when you moved? No light aircraft training, or?
I don't know. I didn't really look into it as much. I guess I just became so busy with stuff out here.
Big adventure. Yeah. Yeah,
I can imagine it would cost 5 times as much as well than the UK. Although fuel's very cheap, so don't know. Now after this, I'm going to go on Google now and just be like, oh yeah.
It's like, oh, maybe I should. Well, I've found since living in Jindabyne and since living on acreage, I can't imagine ever going back. But there is a downside in commuting. Yet there's a very small airstrip in Jindabyne, literally 5 minutes away, like just over the hill and around the corner. And so the ability for me to be able to drive for 5 minutes, jump in a plane, which I could rent, fly to Sydney in an hour and a half, that would open up a lot more. So that's the plan. Watch this space 12, 18 months or so.
Just a cool way to get around, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Helicopter's even cooler, I'd say, but a plane is pretty good. I mean,
helicopter's a whole new level of expense and maintenance.
Yeah. But small planes are risky. I mean, I've been in small planes where we've all had to bail out the back because there was engine faults and the wheel won't go down to land, all sorts of stuff. you know.
And did you say you've had to bail out the back?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wait a minute. You all bailed out, all of you bailed out the back of an aeroplane. What happened to the aeroplane?
Oh, it landed eventually, but he had to. There was something wrong with. He couldn't go up at a certain level. There was something wrong with the wheels. So he was worried about the engine. I don't know. There was some issue with it, but he basically leveled out at 9,000. Said everyone needs to jump out. So we was like, cool. 9,000 is very safe. So
yeah. So and then he went, and so it's not like he jumped out the back as well and let the thing go.
The torpedo into the sky. Yeah, just let it go.
Brilliant. But I've had a blast. This has been a cool chat. How can, because you're obviously you're a speaker on all these topics. How can people get in touch with you? What's the podcast? What's the books? Give us everything. Yeah,
cool. So you can go to my website, which is sebastianbates.com. And then you can book a call with me if you want to chat, or do a podcast interview or whatever. Various books to look for: The Warrior Method, if you're interested in character development. There's Not a Victim, which should be launched in 2 months' time. So that would be sort of July, August 2021. And there's notavictim.co.uk, which is our website for the anti-bullying stuff. In terms of podcasts, we've got the Warrior Academy podcast, which got to number 3 on iTunes and education, which talks a lot about everything Warrior Academy related, character development, some amazing interviews with people who have gone through bullying and attest the success in their life to the bullying they've gone through. Like I was mentioning, filling that void. And then there's Round Pegs Square Holes. So this is the Entrepreneurs Podcast that we launched in Dubai, which came to number 1 on iTunes, and some really good fun episodes on that. Me and my best mate from school back in the day, we just made this podcast during lockdown and had some amazing speakers. They're what we call real but raw. So if you fancy listening to a real but raw with lots of value episode, then search for Round Peg Square Holes.
Beautiful, mate. And any final words?
Any final words? Sure. Don't know, really. I've covered most of it, haven't we, really? Any final words?
Well, let me do this. Any final words to parents with young kids that are maybe resonating with this whole, like, holy shit, have I really set my kids up in a way to give them the resilience and the confidence that they need? What would be some final words from that perspective?
I think parenting is constantly evolving, and I think what our parents did would be different to what their parents did, and so on. So I think a lot of parents approach the subject of parenting with almost this element of guilt or shame of what they should be doing or aren't doing, or doing too much of or too little of. So I would just kind of encourage parents not to look at it that way, but to look at it in how can they evolve as parents. And ultimately, one of the best ways you can evolve, and one of the statements I always say is, the character development is one of the most important yet often missing aspects of a child's development. So seeking something that you think is a structured approach to character development will be one of the biggest factors in your child's life, which will ultimately set them up for a happy and successful life as an adult. I think there's things out there. Warrior Academy is one of them, right? Obviously, I'm going to say Warrior Academy is one of them. We've looked hard to develop an amazing program for that. But there's other things out there like Scouts, which I think we're very aligned to, which really dig into what's important for a child in terms of their development. But alternative options to traditional education. I think as parents, just trying to seek something that fits with you and your mindset, but encouraging that community, encouraging inspiration for your child from a young age through role models, through language, encouraging them to leave their comfort zone to grow, and looking into how they can develop leadership skills. I think those are the 4 main things that we've kind of pinned our program on, that we've seen make the biggest impact. Mate, it's been awesome talking to you. I'm glad we could make it happen. Thanks for your patience with the different bits of tech that we've tried to use to cut through into the UAE's bubble of protection. We did it. We're done now. We're done. We can say whatever we want. We hacked into the mainframe. We used Zoom. We did it. And we haven't been shut down. Pirate radio. It's not dead yet. Thank you so much for having me. It's been awesome. Thanks, legend. I'll talk soon. Good on you. Cool.